was a quiet night. The kind of night where the whole house seemed to fall asleep at once. Outside, the street lights glowed dim through the curtains. And the wind pressed gently against the windows. 8-year-old Daniel lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling. He should have been asleep hours ago, but something kept him awake. It wasn't the usual fear of the dark. It was the sound. A soft scratching, faint but steady, coming from under his bed. At first, he thought it was just his imagination. He pulled the blanket over his head and tried to ignore it. But the sound didn't stop. It scratched, paused, then scratched again, as if something was moving around on the wooden floor beneath him. Probably just the house settling, he whispered to himself. But deep inside, he knew houses didn't scratch. He gathered courage and leaned over the side of the bed, pulling the blanket down just enough to peek into the shadows below. His heart thumped. The space under the bed was too dark to see clearly. But for a moment, just a moment, he thought he saw 2 faint glimmers, like eyes, watching. Daniel yanked his head back up, shoving the blanket over his face. His breathing grew loud, too loud, and he feared whatever was under the bed could hear it. Minutes crawled by. The scratching stopped. Silence. He almost convinced himself it was nothing, until a whisper slid into the air. Daniel? He froze. His name. Someone whispered his name from under his bed. His throat tightened. He wanted to scream for his parents, but no sound came out. He lay still, trembling, clutching the blanket like a shield. The whisper came again, longer this time. Daniel, I see you. That was enough. He leapt out of bed and bolted down the hall, slamming into his parents' room. His mother sat up, startled, asking what was wrong. Between gasps and tears, he told them there was something under his bed. His father groaned, half asleep, and returned with him to check. He bent down, lifted the blanket, and looked underneath. See, his father said, nothing there, just dust and toys. Daniel didn't argue, but when he went back to bed, his father tucked him in and left the door cracked open. The room was still, quiet once more. Daniel forced his eyes shut, begging sleep to come, but sleep never did. Hours later, just as he was drifting, the whisper returned. Closer this time, louder. Daniel, why did you tell? His eyes flew open. The sound wasn't under the bed anymore. It was right beside his ear, as if someone was crouching next to him. Slowly, against every instinct, he turned his head. And there, in the corner of his room, stood a tall, thin shadow. Its head nearly brushed the ceiling. It didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared. Daniel shut his eyes tight, gripping his blanket until his knuckles turned white. When morning came, sunlight washed away the shadow. His parents said he only had a nightmare. But Daniel knew the truth. Because every night since then, the scratching returned, and the whispers grew bolder. Now, when he leans over to look under the bed, it isn't just eyes he sees. It's a face. Pale, grinning, waiting for the moment he dares to fall asleep. Emily hated her closet. It wasn't because of the clothes or the messy pile of shoes on the floor. It was the door. No matter how many times she shut it, it never stayed closed at night. She would push it, hear the click, even tug to make sure it was secure. But by morning, it was always open, just a little, wide enough for shadows to leak through. Her parents laughed it off, saying the old hinges were loose. But Emily knew better. She could feel it. Something inside didn't want to be shut in. That night, as rain tapped against her window, she went through her routine. Brush teeth, check under bed, close closet door. She pressed it hard until the latch clicked. She even wedged a chair in front, just in case. Finally, she climbed into bed, wrapped her blanket tight, and tried to sleep. But sleep wouldn't come. Her room was quiet. Too quiet. Even the rain had stopped. Then she heard it, the sound of wood creaking. Slowly, the chair in front of her closet scraped across the floor, moving on its own. Emily's breath caught. The door eased open with a long, slow groan. Her heart raced. "It's just the hinges," she whispered. But her own words sounded hollow, like she didn't believe them. The gap widened, dark as a cave. From inside, something shifted. A shadow stretched across the floor, long and thin, even though no light was in the closet. It moved like it was crawling toward her. Emily pulled the blanket over her head. Her body shook. Underneath the blanket, it was hot and suffocating. But she didn't dare look. Then, the whisper came. "Emily?" Her heart pounded so loud she thought it would burst. The voice was low, rough, like someone who hadn't spoken in years. "I'm not asleep," she whispered back, as if saying it out loud would keep it away. But the voice laughed, a dry, cracking laugh that made her skin crawl. "Good. I like when you're awake." The blanket was ripped away from her. She gasped, eyes wide, staring at the closet. The door now stood wide open, the dark inside thicker than shadows should be. And then, two pale hands gripped the door frame from within, pulling something out. Emily screamed. Her parents rushed in, flicking on the light. The closet was shut again, the chair back in place. They held her, trying to calm her down, telling her it was just a bad dream. But Emily knew the truth. She could still feel the cold where the hands had gripped the air. The next night, her parents promised to keep her safe. They checked the closet themselves, pushed the chair in front, and kissed her goodnight. But when the lights went off, Emily stared at the door, refusing to blink. And right on cue, creak, the door began to open again. This time she didn't scream. She just lay frozen, watching as something stepped out. The Johnson family had just moved into their new house. It was an old place, built more than 100 years ago, but it felt cozy. The wide staircase, the creaky wooden floors, the long hallways. It all had charm. At the end of the upstairs hallway stood a tall antique mirror. Its frame was carved with twisting vines and faces that almost looked alive when the light hit them. The previous owners had left it behind, saying it was too heavy to move. At first, nobody thought much of it. But then strange things started happening. It was late when Laura, the mother, passed by the hallway on her way to bed. Out of the corner of her eye, she thought she saw someone standing in the reflection. She turned quickly. No one was there. The hallway was empty. She told herself it was just her imagination. But when she looked back, the reflection still showed a figure, faint and blurry, standing behind her. Her breath caught in her throat. She blinked, and the figure was gone. Her son Daniel was brushing his teeth when he noticed something strange. In the mirror's reflection, the hallway lights were flickering, but in reality, they weren't. Then he saw it. A shadowy hand pressed against the inside of the glass, as though someone was trapped behind it. The fingers dragged slowly down the surface, leaving streaks that disappeared as soon as they appeared. Daniel ran to his parents, but when they checked, The mirror only showed their normal reflections. Things got worse. Laura woke to soft footsteps outside her bedroom. She assumed it was Daniel going to the bathroom, but when she peeked out, the hallway was empty. Except it wasn't. In the mirror, she saw him, her son, standing at the end of the hall. His eyes were blank and his mouth hung open. "Daniel?" she whispered. The boy in the mirror tilted his head slowly, unnaturally, like his neck might snap. Then he raised a finger and pointed directly at her. Laura's blood went cold. She looked down the hallway again, desperate. And that's when the real Daniel opened his door, rubbing his eyes. He looked sleepy and confused. "Mom, what's wrong?" She turned back to the mirror. The figure was gone. By now, Laura had decided the mirror was cursed. She wanted to cover it with a sheet or move it downstairs, but every time she tried, something happened. Her hand would slip, or the weight of the frame would pin it against the wall, almost as if the mirror refused to be moved. That night she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing whispering, faint and muffled, like it was seeping out of the glass. She finally got up and walked to the hallway. The mirror glowed faintly in the dark, reflecting nothing but shadows. She stepped closer. The whispers grew louder. She reached out, trembling, and touched the cold surface. Her own reflection blinked twice when she hadn't. Its lips curled into a smile. Then slowly, her reflection raised its hand and pressed it against the glass from the other side. Laura's chest tightened. She stumbled back, but the reflection stayed at the glass, smiling wider and wider until its mouth split open, impossibly large. It mouthed words she couldn't hear, until suddenly the whispering stopped. The reflection leaned forward, pressing against the glass, and Laura realized it wasn't a reflection anymore. It was someone else. Something else. A pale face with hollow eyes stared back at her. And as she screamed, the figure on the other side lifted its hand, then slammed it against the glass so hard the whole mirror shook. Down the hall, Daniel woke to the sound of shattering. When he rushed out, he found his mother standing there, trembling, staring at the cracked mirror. But her reflection? Her reflection was still smiling. The Harringtons had always dreamed of owning a countryside home. When they finally bought an old farmhouse on the edge of a quiet town, they felt their wish had come true. The land stretched wide, the trees swayed gently, and the house, though a little worn, had charm. But there was one thing that troubled them. The bedroom door on the second floor refused to stay shut. On the first evening, after unpacking, Anna Harrington closed the upstairs door before going to sleep. She twisted the old brass knob, testing it twice, and walked away. Minutes later, she heard a soft creak. The door had swung open again. She laughed nervously and shut it once more, this time pressing her weight against it, but as soon as she settled back in bed, creak, it opened again. Her husband, Mark, teased her. "It's just the house settling. Old hinges, that's all." Anna forced a smile. But something about the way the door opened, slowly, deliberately, as if someone were pushing from the other side, sent a shiver through her. The next few nights, the same thing happened. No matter how firmly they shut it, the door creaked open in the dark hours. Sometimes they woke to find it standing wide open. Other times, it hung halfway, swaying gently as if someone had passed through. One night, Mark hammered nails and secured the frame. Yet, hours later, they awoke to the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps outside their room. The nails were lying on the floor, the door wide open again. Anna whispered in fear, "What if it isn't the house?" Mark didn't answer. By the third week, Anna started hearing faint whispers whenever the door opened. At first, she thought it was the wind through the cracks. But one night, she pressed her ear close and froze. A voice, low and raspy, murmured, "Let me in." She stumbled back, clutching her chest. The next morning, she begged Mark to move out. He brushed it off, but she could see the exhaustion in his face. He too was losing sleep. And then, something happened that neither of them could ignore. One stormy night, they tried locking the door again. Anna lay awake, counting every thunderclap, waiting for the inevitable creak. But instead of opening slowly, the door slammed open with a violent force. Lightning lit up the room, and in that split-second flash, Anna swore she saw a tall, shadowy figure standing in the doorway. Its head nearly scraped the frame, its arms too long, its face impossible to see. When the light faded, the doorway was empty. Mark leapt out of bed, rushing to the hall, but there was no one. Only wet footprints leading down the corridor. Footprints too large to be human. Anna could take no more. She begged Mark to sleep downstairs, to leave the upstairs door alone. But Mark, determined, said, "If it wants to open, then let's see why." That night they left the door shut and waited. Hours crawled by. Midnight passed. The silence was unbearable. Then, creak, the door opened slowly, almost teasingly. Anna grabbed Mark's hand, whispering, "Don't move." But Mark, trembling, stood up. "Who's there?" he demanded, voice shaking. A whisper drifted from the darkness beyond the door. Finally, the shadows seemed to swell and move, crawling along the walls, filling the room with suffocating darkness. Anna screamed, pulling Mark back, but it was too late. Something cold and invisible grabbed him, dragging him toward the hall. He clawed at the floor, screaming her name before being pulled through the doorway. The door slammed shut behind him. Anna yanked it open seconds later, but the hallway was empty. Mark was gone. Anna fled the house that night, never to return. When police searched, they found no trace of Mark. The farmhouse remains empty to this day, the upstairs door nailed shut by new owners who lasted less than a week. But the neighbors say the nails never hold for long, because no matter how many times you close it, the door never stays shut. The Ramirez family had just settled into their new home, a quiet house on the edge of town. It wasn't big, but it had space, and their 6-year-old daughter, Emily, loved her new bedroom. The walls were painted light blue, and a small closet stood in the corner, its old wooden door slightly crooked from years of use. From the very first night, however, Emily seemed uneasy. "Mommy," she whispered after being tucked in, "the boy in the closet says he's scared." Her mother, Anna, smiled gently, thinking it was just her daughter's imagination. Moving to a new place was stressful for a child after all. But as nights passed, the game of make-believe didn't stop. It grew darker. Anna noticed Emily whispering to the closet door before bed, as though she were having conversations. Sometimes she giggled, other times her face paled, and she hurried under the blankets. "What's wrong, sweetie?" Anna asked one night. Emily's reply chilled her. "He says he doesn't like when you shut the door. He says it gets too dark in there." Anna frowned. "Honey, there's nobody in the closet." Emily only stared at her mother, wide-eyed. "Yes, there is. He told me." One night, Anna was walking down the hall when she heard her daughter talking softly again. At first, she assumed Emily was playing, but then she froze. A second voice answered. It was faint, muffled, and impossible to make out clearly. But it wasn't Emily's. Anna's skin prickled as she rushed in, flicking on the light. Emily sat up startled. "Why are you talking to yourself?" Anna asked. "I wasn't," Emily replied. She pointed to the closet. He was talking back. The closet door creaked slightly, though no one had touched it. Anna decided she'd had enough. That night, after Emily fell asleep, she left the door of the closet open and sat in the hallway, waiting. Hours passed. Midnight came. The house was silent until the closet door began to move. Very slowly, as if pushed from the inside, it opened wider. Anna's heart pounded. She stood and whispered, "Hello?" For a moment, she swore she saw something in the shadows. A pale hand, small like a child's, retreating back into the darkness. She rushed forward, flung the door open, and turned on the light. The closet was empty, except for one thing. On the floor, in the dust, were small footprints, bare feet, and they didn't belong to Emily. By now, Emily refused to sleep in her room. She said the boy wanted her to come play inside the closet. She cried whenever her parents tried to put her in bed. Anna and her husband thought of calling a priest, but before they could, something terrible happened. That night, Anna woke to the sound of the closet door slamming shut. She bolted upright, her blood running cold. Emily was gone from her bed. Anna rushed to the closet, yanking at the handle. The door was locked tight, though it had no lock. From inside came muffled sobs. "Emily!" Anna screamed, pounding on the wood. "Hold on, I'm coming!" But then, the sobs changed. They deepened, shifted. It wasn't Emily crying anymore. It was something else laughing softly. A cruel, low chuckle. With a final wrench, Anna pulled the door open. The closet was empty. Emily stood in the hallway behind her, trembling, tears running down her cheeks. "Mom," she whispered, "why didn't you stop him?" "He said you couldn't hear him." "But I did." Anna turned back toward the closet in horror. Inside, in the very back, stood a boy. His skin was gray, his eyes hollow, and his mouth twisted into a smile too wide for his face. Before Anna could scream, the door slammed shut on its own when she pulled it open again. The closet was empty, but the footprints remained. And sometimes, late at night, Anna still hears Emily whispering in her sleep, answering someone only she can see. Jason woke in the middle of the night. The room was quiet, the kind of quiet where even the clock seemed to hold its breath. He blinked in the dark, confused. Something had pulled him from his sleep, but he wasn't sure what. Then he noticed it. Someone was sitting at the end of his bed. At first, he thought it was his mom checking on him, but as his eyes adjusted to the dim glow of the night light in the hall, he realized the figure wasn't moving. It just sat there, perfectly still, staring at him. "Mom?" Jason whispered. No answer. The figure leaned forward slightly, the mattress dipping under its weight. Jason's chest tightened. It wasn't his mom. It wasn't his dad. This shape was taller, thinner, its head tilted in an unnatural way, too far to the side. Jason pulled his blanket up to his chin. His whole body shook. Who are you?" The figure didn't speak. Instead, it made a sound. A long, low inhale, like it was breathing him in. Jason squeezed his eyes shut, praying it would vanish when he opened them again. But when he peeked, the figure had moved. It was no longer sitting at the end of the bed. Now it crouched closer, at the side, its face inches from his own. Jason could finally see it. Pale skin stretched too tight over a face with hollow eyes. Its mouth hung open, like it had forgotten how to close. He couldn't move, couldn't scream. The figure leaned closer still. Its breath was icy cold on his cheek. Finally, with all the strength he had, Jason yelled. His parents rushed in seconds later, switching on the light. The room was empty. Nobody was there. His parents comforted him, saying it was just a nightmare. But Jason knew better. The mattress still had an indent where something had been sitting. The next night, he begged to sleep with the lights on. His parents agreed, leaving the lamp by his bed glowing. He felt safer until midnight came again. This time, he woke to see the lamp flicker, then die. Darkness swallowed the room. His heart sank, and then he felt it, the weight on the end of his bed. Slowly, he turned his head. The visitor was back. Same pale face, same hollow eyes, only this time it spoke. In a dry, rasping voice, it whispered, "You called me. Now I'll never leave." It was a rainy night when Emily tucked her little daughter, Sarah, into bed. The sound of raindrops on the roof filled the house, steady and calming. Emily kissed her daughter's forehead, pulled the blanket tight, and whispered, "Good night, sweetie." "Sing me a lullaby, Mommy," Sarah asked sleepily. Emily smiled and sang softly until Sarah's eyes began to close. When the song ended, Emily turned off the lamp and left the door slightly open. A warm glow from the hallway spread into the room. Everything seemed peaceful, but a few hours later, Sarah's eyes snapped open. Someone was singing in her room. The voice was low, croaky, and nothing like her mother's. It sang the same lullaby Emily had sung earlier, but the words were slower, stretched out. Wrong. Sarah sat up in bed, clutching her stuffed bunny. "Mommy?" she whispered. The singing stopped. She looked toward the door, expecting her mom, but the hallway was empty. Then she realized the sound hadn't come from the door. It had come from inside the room, from the dark corner near her closet. Her chest tightened. "Who's there?" No reply, just silence. Sarah slowly lay back down, pulling the blanket up to her face. Maybe she had imagined it. Maybe it was just a dream. She forced her eyes shut. Minutes passed. Then the singing started again. Louder this time. Closer. Sarah's heart pounded. She couldn't stay in bed. She scrambled out and ran to her mom's room. Emily woke to Sarah crying and trying to explain. Emily calmed her down, checked the room, and of course, there was nothing there. No one in the closet, no one under the bed. Just toys and clothes. "You were dreaming, sweetie," Emily assured her. Sarah shook her head, her little voice trembling. It wasn't a dream. The lullaby was wrong. Emily let Sarah sleep in her bed that night. The next evening, Emily tucked Sarah in again, but Sarah begged, "Don't sing tonight, please." Emily hesitated but agreed, just to ease her daughter's fear. She kissed her goodnight and left the light on this time. But at midnight, Emily woke to a sound that made her blood run cold. It was the lullaby. That same broken, rasping voice, drifting through the baby monitor on her nightstand. The voice sang every line slowly, dragging each word like it was savoring them. Emily froze, staring at the monitor. The sound was coming from Sarah's room. She bolted down the hall and burst into the bedroom. Sarah was sitting up in bed, pale, her eyes wide with terror. "Mommy," she whispered, pointing toward the closet. "It's in there. Emily rushed to the closet and flung it open. Only clothes and boxes. But then she noticed something. The lullaby hadn't stopped. It was still playing, clear and loud, but now it came from behind her. Emily turned slowly. Standing at the foot of Sarah's bed was a tall, thin figure. Its face was hidden in shadow, but its mouth moved as it sang the last line of the song. The voice dropped lower, cracking, almost a growl. "Sleep tight, little one. I'm already inside." The lamp flickered. The singing stopped. And when Emily turned on the overhead light, the figure was gone. But the closet door was now wide open.